Welcome to the You're Not Crazy podcast, hosted by Jessica Knight, a certified life coach who specializes in healing from narcissistic and emotional abuse. This podcast is intended to help you identify manipulative and abusive behavior, set boundaries with yourself and others, and heal the relationship with yourself so you can learn to love in a healthy way. You can connect with Jessica and find additional resources, content, and coaching at emotionalabusecoach.com.
Hello, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Today's topic is one that I think about a lot, and a lot of my focus has always been on trying to understand and explain this better. But my hope today is that if you feel crazy, this will help you not. If you don't know, I do have an ebook and it's available on my website, emotionalabusecoach.com. It's also on Amazon if you do want a printed version. If you just search my name, Jessica Knight, you can find it. But the ebook essentially talks about this topic today, how to break up with a narcissist. And it's labeled that way, and the title is that, but it really means how to break up with a manipulative person, or how to break up with somebody who doesn't want to break up, and how to break up with someone that seems to hate you, but they're pushing every boundary to actually break up. And that's what we're going to dive into today. So how to break up with a toxic person and why it doesn't feel like a normal breakup. A lot of times people will basically imply that you need to follow the rules of a normal breakup. And now I really don't know a normal breakup, but people have certainly gone through relationships and then had more of a mutual end. I think we've also gone through breakups before where the other party doesn't want to talk to us and we don't want to talk to them, or there's just a finality to it. But then there are these breakups with manipulative people, toxic people, narcissists, cluster B disorder. You can call it whatever you want to, but it's basically a breakup that never ends or doesn't feel like an actual breakup. And that's what I want to dive into today. And so before I get started, as you know, you can find me on emotionalabusecoach.com. There are courses. I do coaching. I do one-off coaching if you just want a one-off call. The courses are available that have intro to emotional abuse, essentially, to help you figure out, am I in an emotionally abusive relationship? And then I have some courses on divorcing and what that looks like, as well as setting boundaries with the manipulative person. You can also find me on highconflictdivorcecoaching.com and on my Substack, where I do give a lot of information, and I really try and make it more of a membership page. The information on that is in my show notes, but you can just go to Substack and type in Jessica Knight Coaching. So when the rules don't apply, right? Like breaking free from a toxic relationship. If you're breaking free from a toxic relationship, the rules of a normal breakup don't apply. And again, I think anybody will describe normal breakup in various ways, but what we really want to say is there is no mutuality, there's no closure, there's no getting to the end. And so you need to stop trying to put a bow on the mess and call it closure in some way, because you might not get it. And again, this is not amicable. It's not the end of a healthy relationship, where mutual respect prevails, which if you're listening to this, you're like, what's that? This is dismantling of a manipulative, soul-crushing, coercive dynamic. And you're probably listening to this because you're questioning your worth and your sanity. You are not dealing with somebody who respects your boundaries. They don't respect your accountability or your fairness. You're dealing with someone who is fighting tooth and nail to keep control of the narrative and you. When you have that sinking feeling, he's just going to twist this around again, or she's just going to twist this around again. It's not your paranoia. This is your instinct screaming at you. It is asking you to pay attention, and it's telling you to listen to your gut. Because if the pattern is to gaslight, guilt trip, and manipulate, then yeah, you're absolutely right to think that it's going to happen again. And that's why it feels so messy, is because there's no end that feels like an end. You've probably already seen this play out. They might have said things like, I can't believe you're saying this. This isn't what you said yesterday. When you said exactly what you said yesterday, they'll say things like, you made me feel like there was hope, because they heard somewhere in something you said that there was hope, but nothing was offered. And by hope, it means maybe the hope was that they would go to therapy or they would change their behavior, but then they didn't or they wouldn't. And they want hope that has no connection to reality. And they'll say things like, I was just there for you when you went through this thing, which is usually a vulnerable moment. And like, in which case they weaponize your pain to keep you feeling indebted to them. And so this emotional whiplash of this dynamic is exhausting. 1 minute, they're showering you with declarations of love, and the next, they're berating you for setting boundaries. And then when you're finally ready to close the door, when you reach the point where like, oh my God, this is enough, there's always like a little tiny sliver of hope that they show you that they might change, they might soften, they might say something you've really wanted to hear. And if it doesn't make sense, it's because it's not supposed to make sense. I say that all the time. When it doesn't make sense, it's not actually supposed to make sense. Their goal isn't resolution, it's to keep you in the cycle. And so other people in your life are going to say, like, this isn't healthy, or this isn't how a breakup is supposed to happen. But like the quote unquote healthy breakup rules, they don't work here. And again, I don't know how many people, certainly not ones that listen here, and certainly not in my life, like I haven't had that many like healthy breakups. I have had some, but really not a lot. But like if we think about it, they have structure, mutual respect, time to grieve, eventual healing, maybe a future relation, like a future conversation down the road that provides some closure. But toxic relationships are built to keep you stuck. Healthy breakup logic doesn't work with toxic behavior. Trying to leave on good terms only leaves chances for your kindness to be exploited and for you to get back into the cycle. And often the promises will mean nothing. They may be offering change, but their actions show otherwise. Like in a quote unquote healthy breakup, if somebody wanted to really work on themselves and then come back to you and see if the relationship was a good fit, they would give a space, they would give a break. They would like allow that time. They'd be able to take that time and then kind of come back and see where things are. And boundaries feel impossible to enforce because they don't see them as boundaries. They see them as obstacles to control you. So if you say, please don't contact me, I need some space, I need to get my head together, like, please just give me like a day at this point, they're not going to give that to you. They're going to make it seem like you are weaponizing their healing while actively not allowing you to even think for yourself. And so this leaves you feeling like you're in this giant chess game trying to strategize your next move, and you've never experienced a breakup like this. But they're playing a completely different game. Their objective is to win, either win the narrative of the breakup or to get you back because they want control, really only to cost you something. If they really cared, then they would really look at their behavior. They would give you the space that you need. They wouldn't want you to feel so confused. They wouldn't want a relationship to end with absolutely no closure or no conversation or no next steps or no how do you get your stuff back. They wouldn't follow up with the litany of financial concerns that now you owe them back for that you once didn't. It's an emotional tug-of-war. And one of the hardest parts is all of the confusion. You probably find yourself saying to yourself, why doesn't this feel right? Why do I feel guilty for having any boundaries? Am I allowed to have boundaries? Wait, he seems to have a boundary. Why am I questioning myself so much? And that's the cycle of manipulation at work. It's designed to keep you doubting yourself. And because you're someone who values kindness, fairness, integrity, doing the right thing, you think that kindness is going to change something. But kindness cannot come at the expense of being cruel to yourself. Toxic partners don't just manipulate. You probably have noticed that they try and isolate you. Maybe it's snide comments about your friends, or convince you that your family doesn't understand you, or understand anything, or they guilted you into spending all your time with them. But this isolation is not accidental. It's a calculated tactic to cut you off from people who could give you perspective or support. And the goal is to make you feel dependent on them and then question your reality. I've even talked to people that have been berated by their partner for reaching out for support from a friend or family member, as if they shouldn't be talking about it. It's almost as if they want to control the narrative in your head and the narrative out in the world. It's really coercive. Recognizing this isn't just recognizing the red flag. It's an entire parade of red flags. One thing that you can look for is that the patterns will speak louder than the promises. When you're stuck in the cycle, it's easy to latch on to promises. I've changed. I'll do whatever it takes to make this work. I love you more than anything. I just need one more chance. Give me a chance to show you. I promise you it will be different. But you can ask yourself, do these actions align to their words? And you could look in the past, the back in the past of like what has happened in the relationship and ask yourself, do the actions align with the words? What ends up standing out more? The promises they're making now or the patterns that they've shown you all along? The patterns have likely been riddled with manipulation, gaslighting, and boundary violations all along, and they don't magically disappear in 2 weeks or 1 week or 2 days. Like, it takes time to change. Think about where you are right now, right? You are a healthy-minded person listening to this, trying to understand what's going on, and probably sitting with the reality right now that in order for you to see this differently and not that this is the love of your life, and all you want to do is be together forever, that you're going to have to change your mind and see that he's actually manipulative or she's actually manipulative or that she or he is unhealthy, right? That's a major change, and it's one that you're trying to make, but your body is like repelled against it, I'm sure. However, imagine if you felt you were right, but you were only changing because somebody else wanted you to, how long that change would make. The example I give in the podcast, I believe it's called Trauma Bonding and How You Can Heal. It's like one of the first ones I ever did is if you drank coffee your whole life, every day, every single day, and then one day somebody came up to you and said, now you need to have tea. You can no longer have coffee. But you had this routine. You got up, you ordered from Starbucks, you went every day. You would really have to change your reality, right? Like it would be an adjustment. And even if it was like, man, I need to change this. Having tea every day will be a mindset change. You will feel different. You will feel awful. Is this toxic person willing to feel awful ever without blaming you? There's a lot of narrative out there about no contact, but the reason that there is because it begins to separate you from what's actually happening so that you can get clear on your own. And if you've listened to me, I've been a proponent of doing no contact when you feel like you can, because otherwise you're just struggling. And obviously if you share kids with this person, it's much different. You can't just go no contact, but I would think about it like as extreme limited contact. I do have a course on no contact that basically talks about like what no contact actually is, because a lot of us still hang on. But if you can get yourself there, the best thing you can do is not to have contact, because then that confusion starts to go away. It's going to heighten at first, but then it will start to feel a bit more clear. And no contact isn't about being mean to them. It's about being safe for you. Blocking them isn't about punishing them. It's about protecting yourself. Every message they send is a chance for them to twist the narrative or guilt trip you or reel you back in. And removing that access is an act of self-preservation. And if you've listened this far, you're probably wondering, like, how do you begin to break this cycle? What can you do? So I wanted to share some things that you can do regardless of where you are in the journey. And all of these can be journal prompts. They all can be ways that you just connect with yourself to get more clear. And so beginning to break the cycle, set boundaries without apologizing. Your boundaries are not negotiable. If you say, I need the night to myself, I need to think, please don't contact me. I just need a day to get my head together. Or please stop bringing up XYZ. You don't need to explain. You don't need to justify. Just try to set a boundary without having to explain yourself. You don't need to defend it. It is totally okay if you need a break. If you feel like you can, block them and stick to it. No contact is a clean way to protect yourself, but it's not about them. It's about your well-being. Focus on the patterns that are going on, not the words. When you are tempted to believe promises, really try and remember the behavior. There's an episode that I have about on gaslighting yourself. Again, it's probably one of the first 10 or 15 I ever did. I will link it in the show notes. You have to remember that actions speak louder than words. And you can go and work through the actions. Look at the actions of what's happening, not the promises, or even look at the past promises and ask yourself what's actually changed. You're not walking away because you're giving up. So something that you can do is also reclaim your narrative. And this is something I used to do all the time. I would write down what the narrative actually is, because they're so strong in theirs of like, even if it's like, this wasn't working, it had to end, it's still something that helps you show up for yourself. If isolation has been the weapon, you need to reconnect with a support system. Rebuilding connections with friends will really help. And if you need to, seek professional help. I work with people going through this all the time. There are other coaches, there are therapists that can help you rebuild your sense of self. And if you have already ended this relationship and you feel like you don't understand why they don't understand that it's over, you could remind yourself, I already said goodbye. I already said goodbye. The goodbye was when you realized that their promises meant nothing. The goodbye was when you decided that you deserved peace. The goodbye was when you recognized that there are patterns of manipulation and you refuse to keep playing this game. In another episode, I'm going to talk about closure. It's going to be the one coming out the week after this. But the closure conversation is not for them, it's for you. You don't owe them anything. You don't owe them a conversation in person. You get to define what closure actually is. And if you're not getting it from them, then the next episode I have will be for you. But for now, no matter what they say you owe them, you don't owe them anything. And so breaking free from a toxic relationship doesn't just look like a tidy, mutual, happy goodbye. It's messy, it's hard, and it doesn't come with anything that you're used to or anything that Instagram tells you is a healthy dynamic. But you don't need permission to want to end this. You don't need permission to have to end this. You don't need understanding, approval, or their agreement. It's not about them anymore. This is about you. And even if it feels like you can't sit in the driver's seat, I want you to feel like at the very least you can start to, even in your own head. If you need support, you can find me at emotionalabusecoach.com. You can always book a validation session, which is a one-off session. If the times that I have listed do not work for you, please just email me and I'd be happy to set up a time with you. There are times that sometimes I have available that are just not on my calendar, so you always can ask. And if you need additional support, I really encourage you to get it because you're going through something that likely feels impossible. I hope this helps. You can follow me at Emotional Abuse Coach on Instagram. You can email me at jessica@jessicaknightcoaching.com.